Today, in New York, you cannot enjoy a beer with your lunch. That they banned this back before there was drinking and driving. People used to drink and drive, I think, what, in the 70s or something? Like 60s?
Yeah. 60s probably.
So my point is simply this. Everybody keeps playing this game of we must be principled. And I'm like, bro, nobody has any agreement on what those principles are anymore. Being principled applies to a country with social cohesion. If everybody shares a moral worldview, we remain principled because we're saying don't be corrupt. But if you come to me and say, but Tim, if you say that Trump should arrest the corrupt politicians, Democrats will get in and do it too. And I'm like, actually, it's the other way around.
Yeah, I think
Democrats did this, and now Trump should too.
I think you're pointing out there's been an inversion for a long time on the right about how these principles actually work with one another. What you're pointing to is like, and the complaint about abusive parents, right? In the case of abusive parents, whether that's sex changes or physical abuse or whatever. If a second order principle is not in service of a higher principle, which is our view of there are things that are morally right and things that are morally wrong. If someone has hijacked that, then that principle is no longer in service of the common good. I go back to Aquinas and what he says about what law is. Law has to be in service of the common good.
Yeah.
If it's not in service of the common good, then you are free to politically, prudently reject that law. These aren't, the left and their efforts to, trans the kids. There's no way that can be interpreted as some sort of positive moral good in a world where there is any sort of rational world where we can determine what is right, what is wrong, what is black, what is white, etc. I think you're absolutely right on this. Like, this wartime presidency thing is actually a recovery of higher values in our politics that have been completely destroyed because people latched on to these secondary principles, right? Wanting to have a say over your child's education or over your child's well-being, and made that the entire ballgame. And like, actually, we need to get back to the most basic stuff, which is, no, everybody, there is a right and a wrong. The world was created by God. He has a plan for you, right? Like, you have to get back to that.
So here's where we are.
Totally agree.
There was a time when this country was morally cohesive. We had a dominant moral worldview. It was based on Christian moral ethics. Whether atheists want to accept it or not, it's actually a fact. You can disregard it. That's what you get with wokeness and liberalism today. In this period, we believe in free speech. Can you guys tell me one time this country has ever actually believed in free speech? Because the answer is it never has.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to drag this country, the United States, it's a great country, but when they actually ratified the Bill of Rights, blasphemy was still illegal. You can go to small towns and they'd string you up, they'd kick you out, they'd criminally charge you for obscenities. Speaking obscenities in public was illegal even in the 1970s. In fact, the Second Amendment, when was that ever protected? We argue about the NFA. Please, you couldn't carry a gun on your person until 2008 with DC versus Heller. So we like to look at the Constitution, and I will say this. We have been winning tremendously over a long period of time towards those goals in the Bill of Rights. But the Founding Fathers never intended for any of them to be applied this way. Because I'll say it again. You go back to the Founding Fathers, stand up in one of their congressional congresses and start cussing and blaspheming, and they'd have you arrested. And they'd say, we're not talking about the free speech to do that. We're talking about the right peaceably assemble meant that individuals could gather in a room and hold a Continental Congress of the king coming and shutting it down. My point ultimately is this. When our country is morally unified, we think we're operating under these principles. But the truth is, the moment someone speaks out something nasty, we throw them under the bus. To be fair, in the past 30 years, you could say the most important things in the world, you wouldn't get thrown in prison for it. You go out and do Nazi stuff, you won't go to prison for it. And that's the important point. But that's still a recent development. Today, my point is simply this. There is no moral cohesion in this country. The woke think being mean to people is violence and will enforce that law against you. They argue that incitement to violence is not free speech. The right then agrees. They then say, and disparaging a group and calling them evil monsters is inciting people to attack them. We then disagree. Doesn't matter. You will get a judge who will bang the gavel and say, of course, if you demonize a whole group of people, people will attack them. And so your principle of free speech is meaningless in the context of your morals. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.